Good evening. Hi, I'm Senator Liz Krueger, joined by my colleague, Senator Brian Kavanagh, and we are co-hosting this event this evening, which I think we will all find incredibly informative because we have some really great experts. And this is going to be about the New York State Homeowner Assistance Program that you may be eligible for, and you may be very interested in making sure you learn as much as you can and apply for. I want to welcome participants who are viewing on Zoom and also on Facebook Live, or some may be calling in to the discussion via phone. I want to make sure everybody knows we have closed captioning for this evening's event. As a viewer, you have to activate closed captioning to view the text on your device. If you're watching via Zoom, click on Live Transcript in the meeting controls to start viewing closed captioning. If you're in the Facebook Live event, you will see a setting button in the bottom right-hand corner of your video. Click Closed Caption, CC, to start viewing your closed captioning. This forum is being recorded, and everyone who RSVP'd will receive an email of a link to the video within a few days. And I suspect we will have it up on both Brian and my websites as well. Before we get to the topic of tonight's forum, I would be remiss if I did not recognize that today is the one-year anniversary of the failed right-wing armed insurrection in the United States Capitol. 1 year ago today, the former president of the United States and his co-conspirators, including many leaders of our Republican Party, incited an armed insurrection against the government of the United States with the express purpose of overturning the results of a free and fair election. It was the first time since the Civil War that our country has not enjoyed a peaceful transfer of power. One Capitol Police officer died, 138 officers were injured, and 4 died by suicide in the aftermath of the attack. Today, I introduce legislation co-sponsored by many of my colleagues to create an annual day of commemoration in New York State on January 6th called Democracy Day, so that we can remember the terrible events of this day and honor those who were killed or wounded, and recognize the ongoing threat of anti-democratic, white nationalist, and authoritarian movements in the United States. It is critical that Americans never forget what happened 1 year ago, how close we came to losing our democracy, and how fragile our institutions remain. If we fail to remain vigilant, we could see the events of January 6th last year repeat themselves with a much more destructive outcome. I want to thank more than a dozen Manhattan elected officials and community boards who co-sponsored tonight's events. I'm not going to read all their names, but they are up and you'll be able to see them in chat, if not in other places. But I do look forward to our continuing work with our Manhattan colleagues. And now we will move to tonight's event, the New York State Homeowner Assistance Fund, which has started accepting applications on Monday, January 3rd. My office regularly hears from constituents living in co-ops and condos who have fallen behind on their mortgages, monthly maintenance payments, and or their property taxes because of the pandemic. Because of this, I'm so pleased that New York State has launched a $539 million homeowner assistance fund that will offer up to $50,000 per applicant in assistance to struggling low and middle income co-op shareholders, condo owners, and small home owners. We are joined tonight by Dina Levy, Senior Vice President of Single Family and Community Development of New York State Homes and Community Renewal, and Rosemarie Cantanno, the Associate Director of the Consumer Protection Unit at the Legal Assistance Group. Dina and Rosemarie will provide an overview of the new program, explain the types of assistance available, offer application tips, and at the end of the event tonight, we will be taking Q&A, and I bet we can't even catch them off guard. While many questions have been submitted in advance, you can also submit questions through the Q&A functions on Zoom and Facebook. But before I turn it over to tonight's presenters, I want to welcome my friend and co-host of tonight's event, Senator Brian Kavanagh, who is the chair of the Senate's Housing Committee and a true expert in his own right. After the presentation, we'll come back to do Q&A for that final portion of the event. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Liz. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, and good evening, everyone. I'm really glad we could be here together, virtually, as I think we're all getting used to now, almost 2 years into the pandemic, and it, really is a good opportunity to talk about something very important tonight. I'm just going to begin by noting that I am finally directly experiencing the aforementioned pandemic, in that I have contracted COVID, and I'm a little under the weather. So I am going to be here for the beginning and try to stay through much of the proceedings, but I may fade at some point. So I apologize in advance if I do. But it is great to be here. I want to thank Liz Krueger, who, all of you know, is an incredible advocate for New Yorkers in so many ways. And as the chair of our finance committee, really has made sure that the budget that we passed last year contained enormous programs to relieve the greatest burdens coming out of the pandemic, and particularly this program that we're talking about tonight, which is the first big effort the state is putting forth to relieve the costs that have been incurred by homeowners that people have been unable to pay as a result of the pandemic. I also want to add my thanks to Dina and everybody at HCR for designing a really thoughtful program, and for spending the last month or so getting the word out. And tonight's forum, I think, is part of our efforts to make sure that everybody who might need the resource of this program can hear about it and participate. And Rosemary also from NILAG, who is a partner in a lot of the work we do in making sure that New Yorkers' interests are protected and making sure they're represented by counsel when they need it, and really, ensuring that justice and fairness are part of everything we do. And I'd like to thank everybody who's here tonight. We really are excited to have your questions answered and to get information out about this program. We have really, from the beginning of the pandemic, been focused particularly on the question of protecting people's ability to stay in their homes. We did that through an eviction and foreclosure moratorium that have now been in place for 22 months since early March of 2020. We're going to need to look in the near future what to do with that moratorium, because the next expiration date is coming up soon. And we've also been working on both the renter side and the homeowner side to make sure that we cover the costs of that homeowners and renters have incurred, so that we don't have a situation where people are left with long-term economic burdens as a result of this very difficult period. So those initiatives have, of course, been to prevent people from suffering the consequences, and also they've been a critical part of the public health measures that we've taken, because we realized that displacing people from their homes was going to be something that would increase the effect of the public health crisis that would spread COVID. And actually, some peer-reviewed studies, we initially sort of had a hunch that would be the case. There have been peer-reviewed studies that have shown that states that have allowed the moratoria to lapse and allowed people to be displaced have seen higher rates of COVID as a result. So again, we're well into this crisis now. We are very excited to have this $539 million program, particularly, as Liz mentioned, co-op and condo owners, which were ineligible for the COVID-19 emergency rental assistance program, are now eligible for this program to cover a variety of costs. So that's something that we've pushed for, to ensure that those costs are included in this program. So again, thank you very much. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, everybody who's here tonight. And I look forward to, a great presentation and good discussion of this program. And, I'm very, very happy to be with all of you tonight.
Great, thank you. And we know that we wish for you to get healthy as soon as possible. And since we know you're smart and we're vaccinated and boosted, you are going to get healthy very quickly.
Yes, I should have mentioned that. Yes, I got my 3 shots and, right on time. So I'm
There you
doing
go.
better as a result.
There you go. So we know you're going to get better. With that, I am delighted to turn it over. Well, first off, both of our guests I have known for a long time, and they have been incredibly helpful on so many issues with housing. So I'm really excited they're with us tonight. And I'm going to turn it over first to Dina Levy, and then next she'll turn it over to Rosemarie Cantanno, and then I'll be back, or Brian and I'll be back, depending on the situation for Q&A. Okay, hi Dina.
Hi, Senator. Thank you so much. Thank you to both you and Senator Kavanagh. Kavanagh, I hope you feel better soon.
Thank you.
Put your picture on, Dina?
I can turn my camera on. I'm also going to share my screen.
Okay.
So I'd like to take us through a pretty short PowerPoint presentation to just go over the nuts and bolts of the program. So let me do that now. Make sure everybody can see it. Can you confirm for me, Senator Krueger, that this is visible?
Yep, we can see it.
Great, terrific. So thank you again. Let me just go ahead and jump right in. So this is a federal program. The funds were awarded by Congress as part of the American Rescue Plan back in March of 2021. The program nationally is being overseen by the U.S. Department of Treasury. It was Treasury who then figured out the allocation for each state. And as Senator Krueger and Senator Kavanagh mentioned, New York was allocated $539 million. Very specifically, these funds are to help homeowners stay in their home. It is can do a number of things, but the overarching goal is to make sure folks are avoiding foreclosure, default, or displacement. The uses can apply to different types of homeowners. So there may be folks who are behind on mortgage or may have a mortgage payment that they can no longer afford due to a reduction in income. It can go to address delinquent property taxes, including utilities such as water and sewer bills. And as mentioned already, it certainly can go to assist cooperators who may be both behind on a mortgage, but also may just be behind on monthly carrying charges, so HOA or maintenance fees. We're going to get in a minute into more detail about what if you have multiple of these issues. And while I recognize this is not a big issue in New York City, it can also go to fund homeowners who live in manufactured housing, which actually New York State has quite a bit of. And that's both to assist homeowners who may have fallen behind on their home payments or on their monthly lot rents. As was also mentioned, the program formally launched in terms of accepting applications on this past Monday, January 3rd. New York was the first state in the country to get approval from Treasury to go forward. And we are very pleased after a very hard month of both grassroots outreach and paid marketing to now be actively accepting applications. So some of the requirements under the program, again, these were stipulated largely by the federal rules, so by Treasury. So you must be a New York State homeowner and you must occupy your home as your primary residence. That generally means it is the place where you live most of the year. The program also requires for a homeowner to attest that they have endured financial hardship as a result of COVID. That is defined both under the statute and under the Treasury rules as a material or significant loss of income or a material or significant increase in expenses as a result of COVID. Under this program, we are just asking homeowners to sign an attestation, which is like a note or a promise that is truthful. There is not a requirement to demonstrate that there was a loss of income or an increase in expenses, but you will be signing a document that attests to that fact. You must, under the Treasury rules, be behind on your monthly housing costs. Again, we covered what most of those housing costs would probably include. So it's mortgage, monthly maintenance, or carrying or co-op fees, water, sewage, property taxes, or chattel loans. There are 2 exceptions to the requirement to be delinquent at the time of application, which I'll cover in just a minute. And then finally, there are income requirements under the program. So applicants, and this is for the household overall, must earn equal to or less than 100% of the area median income. Area median income is a metric set by HUD every year, so also by the federal government. We have published on our website, which we'll also promote at the end of the presentation, a chart So you can look up by whatever county you live in and by whatever size household you have, what exactly that 100% area median income threshold is equal to. For the purposes of tonight, I've listed here what that number is for New York City residents, and that's for all 5 boroughs. So a household of 1, the cap income for the family is $83,550. A household of 2 people is $94,450. A household of 3 is $107,400, and a household of 4 is $119,300. The chart goes all the way up to a household of 8, and again, it is available on our website. In terms of the operations for this program, there are a number of really important partnerships that we've established, including with Rosemary's group, so NILAG, who you'll hear from in a little bit. In terms of the day-to-day operations of the program, New York State did a competitive request for proposals to find a not-for-profit partner to help operate and administrate the program. We were very lucky to be able to select Sustainable Neighborhoods LLC. For those of you who are in the city, Sustainable Neighborhoods is the CDFI or Community Development Financial Institution affiliate of a group called the Center for New York City Neighborhoods. They have been around for a very long time and are dedicated specifically to working with homeowners on foreclosure prevention and other types of homeownership preservation. Again, very lucky to have them as a partner in this program. In addition, we've built a partnership out with the New York State Attorney General's office, and this is specifically for borrowers or applicants who are applying for the program and have a mortgage. There are a number of requirements that the federal government and also state banking law is requiring banks to offer homeowners who may be struggling as a result of COVID. And one of the goals of our program is to make sure that applicants are not only getting the benefit of half dollars or the homeowner assistance fund dollars, but also whatever relief they're entitled to from their bank. So the Attorney General's office has brought on a team, a fairly large team of attorneys. And we will be working once you apply to the program to help you work with that office to make sure that your bank is offering you all the relief that you may be entitled to. And then finally, we have this partnership with what is known as the Homeowner Protection Program. Again, this is Rosemary's group. NILAG is one of those organizations. There are over 70 of these are not-for-profit housing counseling and legal service providers who specialize in foreclosure prevention and working with homeowners who are at risk. They, in addition to being able to provide technical assistance to individuals, can also submit applications to the program on your behalf. So if you reach out to one of these organizations, they can submit an application on your behalf with your permission, and they can do that for multiple clients. And we've built a sort of separate portal, if you will, or application portal so that they can submit as many applications as they need to. And we'll hear from Rosemary in a little bit. So as Senator Krueger said, there is a cap under the program of a total of $50,000. That's to the household. So each household applying, and there should only be one application per household, is eligible for up to $50,000. The actual award will be based on need, but it is capped at $50,000. I do want to say, and in a second, I'll go over the different types of interventions the program is offering. You can apply for multiple interventions under the HAF program. So if you are behind on, say, your monthly maintenance fees within your co-op, but you also have a mortgage that you use to acquire your co-op, and you need to apply for assistance for both, you are absolutely able to do that. But the combined award cannot exceed $50,000. So the different types of interventions generally break down fairly simply. The first is for mortgage borrowers. And here again, we'll be working closely with the Attorney General's office. In this case, we envision that folks may need assistance either getting current on their mortgage, or they may be carrying a mortgage payment they can no longer afford. And that program is called a principal reduction, where we would work with your bank to try to reduce your overall outstanding mortgage and try to bring your monthly payment down to an affordable level. The second program is for generally everybody else that is not mortgaged, and we're calling it our arrears satisfaction program. So here again, if you are a cooperator or a condo owner and you've fallen behind on your carrying charges or your HOA fees or your homeowner association fees, this is really to try to get you current on whatever that missed payment is. Here too, this can address anybody who's fallen behind on property taxes, water or sewage bills. And also, again, for the one manufactured home park in Staten Island, in case you're with us tonight, we can help manufactured homeowners who have fallen behind on monthly lot rents or on their home debt. The last program, and again, this will be layered likely with the other two interventions, is called our forward payment program. This is specifically for applicants who currently are unemployed or have a member in the household who is unemployed or who have exhausted their unemployment benefits. In this case, you can apply for 6 months of prospective housing payments. So whether that's co-op payments, mortgage payments, property tax payments, if you meet that threshold of being either unemployed or having exhausted unemployment benefits, you can provide folks of up to 6 months of forward payments. And again, you can marry that with one of the other two interventions. Here is one place where I do want to note an exception on the Treasury requirement that an applicant be delinquent at the time of application. So there are really two exceptions. The first is if you are current but unemployed on your mortgage or your co-op monthly fees or whatever it is, but you are unemployed, you can still apply for the forward payment program. And we would encourage folks to do that. And we did push Treasury to give us an exception for that circumstance. The other place we were able to get Treasury to make an exception is if you are a mortgaged borrower, and whether that's on a 1 to 4 unit property or a co-op or a condo, and you have been offered a modification, a loan modification, so that a change in the term of your loan since COVID, so basically since January of 2020, and you cannot afford that monthly payment. So you're struggling to stay current on your mortgage, but you are currently current. We encourage you to still apply, and we will work to try to get assistance to that applicant and also to work with the lender to try to change the terms of those mortgage payments. So what happens when you apply and actually are awarded funds under this program? So we've had a lot of questions about, is this a grant or is it a loan? It is technically speaking a forgivable grant. So once you are deemed eligible for the program and an award amount has been communicated both to you and to whoever you owe the funding to, the homeowner does have to sign what we call a promissory note. That will be executed with our nonprofit partner that I mentioned, Sustainable Neighborhoods. The term of that note states that if you remain in the home for 5 years, you do not refinance your mortgage or sell the home within that period, the half funds will be completely forgiven. If there is an urgent reason within that 5-year period why a homeowner must refinance or sell the home, we can make an exception that will be considered through an appeal process to the Sustainable Neighborhoods LLC. The last thing I want to mention here that's a requirement is what we call no duplication of benefits. So this is a federal rule. If you have received state or federal funds for missed housing payments, the HAF program cannot also compensate you for those same missed payments. Now, that's not to say that if you've received assistance from another program that you cannot apply to HAF. You can and you should if you still have a gap. But we would have to then take the extra step to make sure that the funds you are applying for were not already satisfied by some other federal or state source. So again, if you've received assistance from another program and you're curious about whether you're still eligible for HAF, we encourage you to apply. And then through our case management process, we will just work to determine that we are not doubling up on paying for the same arrears that another program has already covered. I do want to mention, it's there in a little note, there have been some questions about whether these funds, when awarded to a homeowner, would create a tax liability for that homeowner. Treasury has confirmed for us that these are not taxable events. So a homeowner who receives benefits under HAF should not have a consequence on their annual taxes. I quickly want to go through just what to expect as part of the application process. We have worked very, very hard to make the application as streamlined and as easy as possible. As I've said many times, it's hard to go first. It's a little easier to go second. So from some of the past programs, including the REM program, we've taken away a lot of lessons learned about how to make the application process as easy as possible. The other thing I'll mention is that the application, which is now live and available on our website, is in 10 languages. and our call center, which can help you if you have questions as you're filling out the application or want to submit through our call center, is also functioning in 10 languages, as well as a translation service for any of those languages beyond the 10 that we're not staffed up for. So the first part of the application we call pre-qualification. It's relatively short. It's about 8 questions, and it is just looking for basic eligibility requirements, so that you'll attest that you were COVID impacted, that you meet the income qualifications, that you're acknowledging that you are a New York homeowner who uses your home as your primary residence. Once you get through that first part of the application, again, very short, you will be sent an email, a secured link email to the email address that you provide. You will be asked to go to that email account, click on the link, and that will enable you to register for the program on our website. You will create a password. You should keep that password handy in case you need to leave the application and come back to it some later date. You will then be asked a series of short registration questions just to gather more information about you and how we can contact you and the best time of day to contact you. We will be asking for demographic information, which you can decline to share, but Treasury has really made it a priority that we do try to collect demographic information. Again, this is a very short section of the application. The next section would be about your income and your household information. We have worked very hard to try to minimize the number of documents that you will have to provide, including about income. It won't work for everybody, but for those who are willing to provide and can provide Social Security information, we may be able to use your Social Security information to independently validate that you are income eligible and not require you to upload additional documents. Again, not everybody can or will be able to do that, in which case there are a series of very short and simple requests for documents to validate income. And then finally, we will be asking about your housing costs. And here, again, we're just trying to ascertain what it is you are struggling to pay, who you owe the money to, how far behind you are. There, in every application, this is one place where you will have to upload a document, and that will be a statement from whomever you owe the funds to. If it's a mortgage company, then a statement from your mortgage company. If it's your co-op, then a statement from your management company or co-op board, just demonstrating to the program that you do have a delinquency, unless you meet one of those exceptions that we talked about earlier, in which you're current but unemployed. And then finally, you'll be asked to sign attestations. We've covered that. These are basically statements. One is just that you are telling the truth in the information you've provided. The other, as I mentioned, is the COVID impact. Another one is that you are truly occupying your home as your primary residence. So very simple. You don't have to print anything. You can just e-sign by typing your name in. I will mention, since we opened on Monday, a couple folks have had trouble with the attestation e-signature. However you put your name into the earlier part of the application when we first ask you who you are, that has to match what you put into the application exactly in the attestation. So please be very mindful if you're using caps or if you're using lowercase, that you're matching that when you get to the attestation. Again, it's a relatively short application, and if anybody runs into trouble while moving through the process, we have a live operators call center that's operating from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. 6 days a week. Again, 10 languages plus a translation service if we need it. You can stop and save your work at any point during the application or contact the call center if you need additional assistance. The documents that you will need to upload, I've basically covered here. There's really just 4 areas. And again, in some cases, we may not need you to upload the documentation if you can provide us with certain ID points, such as a Social Security. In some cases, we've been able to validate that you are who you say you are. So your identification using a date of birth. So if you're prepared to share that with us, the system will automatically look you up in a third-party public database. And again, this has saved people from having to upload a lot of documents in some cases. And then the last one we've already talked about, we will need a proof of housing delinquency where that's applicable. And that's the one thing we can't validate through any other source but you. So at a minimum, everybody will have to upload at least one document. So I've already covered that the easiest way to apply, and again, we've tried to make it very easy, is on our website. The application can be started, stopped, and returned to. You can call the call center if you do not have access to technology or you're just not comfortable using the internet. We understand. You can reach out to our call center, again, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. They're the live operators who are answering the calls, can apply for you by just asking you the questions and then importing it for you. You will, in that case, need to get a secure link emailed either to a friend or to a relative or to a hot partner if we need to upload certain documents. In very rare cases, we will accept mailed in documents, but we are trying very hard to avoid that, both because it takes time and because we understand from some of the past programs that that has been problematic. So we will accommodate anybody who needs to get their documents to us, but we tried to find multiple ways to make that easy. And then finally, the third-party advocate that I mentioned. So this is this network of housing counselors and legal service providers who you'll hear from in a minute. There are multiple groups operating in New York City, and they are fantastic. And they have been doing this work long before COVID, and I'm sure they'll be doing it long after. And again, they can take on clients and submit applications on your behalf with your permission. That said, I do want to mention, if you are somebody who wants to get help from a friend or a relative, a neighbor, that is absolutely fine too. The application will allow you to work with somebody. And in that case, we will collect both your information, but also your advocate information. So your friend or your relative or your neighbor, and communicate both with you, the homeowner, and with the third-party representative throughout the process. So after you've submitted the application, we will also continue to email your designated representative as we go through the life of processing your application. So that is my presentation. I do want to urge people to go to our website. I have heard mostly positive things, and it has been functioning very well since we launched on Monday. In addition to the application, there's also a ton of information that you might find helpful. And again, all of that information has been translated into 10 languages. It includes an application guide, which is sort of a step-by-step with a little bit more detail than what I covered here tonight. It has the document checklist, which will tell you exactly what information we'll be asking for to avoid uploading documents, but also what you'll need to upload if you can't provide that information. And then frequently asked questions. I've also mentioned we have our income chart there, so you can see what 100% AMI is for your family size to see that if you are income eligible for the program. And of course, our call center, 844-77-NY-HALF, or translated 844-776-9423. I'm sure we'll find a way to put that in the chat or in the Q&A before we close tonight. And with that, I would love to turn it over to one of our great partners, Rosemary Cantanno from the New York Legal Assistance Group, who is assisting us in helping folks get into this program. So Rosemary, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to talk to you about the HALF program, which is up and running. We have completely submitted applications. They've gone through without any real problems, which is always good. I just want to walk you through some of the things that you should look out for, some of the things that, to expect, and also to tell you how me and the other agencies in the HOP network can help you to do this. You have a lot going on in your own lives. This is what we're here for. Please, I'm going to ask you, they ask you all for the application. If you want help, reach out to somebody, have someone who does this for a living, help you with it. But on that note, the first thing I want to say is all the HOP network, we are all not for profit. So no one should be telling you that it costs $2,000 for them to put in the application for you. There are free attorneys and housing counselors out there to help you. I've also heard one or two people say that someone called them and said there's an administrative fee for the program. There are no administrative fees to be paid for the HALF program. So if somebody is asking you for money up front, they are most likely a scammer. So my first warning is going to be, please, if you just get a call on the phone from someone and they say, I saw your application and we can do this for you for $1,000. You don't need to do that. And please don't. In general, Dina covered pretty much everything. There's a lot of different things that this program can help with. And we definitely need to be able, though, to show the program what your need is. So for people who are in mortgage arrears, one of the requirements that we need to do is we need to also go to your lender, and we need to make sure that your lender is giving you everything they're supposed to be giving you. There are rules in place that the lenders are supposed to follow, and that's why the Attorney General has been nice enough to put together this team to help with any lenders that are difficult. But if you have the type of loan where your arrears are supposed to be put on the back and you're not supposed to be paying on them right now, we need to make sure that you get that. That doesn't disqualify you necessarily from half if you need other funds for other things as well. But we do want to make sure that the lenders come to the table with everything that they're supposed to do. I know 500 plus million sounds like a lot of money, but honestly, the need in New York is probably way above that, which is why I'm so glad that all of you are on tonight, because we want to get your applications in as soon as possible. I highly recommend you don't say, well, I'll wait 2 or 3 months and see what's happening, because who knows if 3 months from now there'll be any money left. So we highly recommend that people, you reach out to people or you go online and you try to get this done as soon as possible. As Dina laid out, there are a lot of uses that I'll talk about. I do want to say, because we have been receiving some calls, I do want to just let people know the HAF program does not pay for utility payments. I know that some of the utility companies have been telling people to go apply for HAF. So please, I just want you to know that it's not going to pay your electric bill or your heating bill. But obviously we talked about the mortgage and I know there are a lot of people, I saw some of the questions that came through are calling about co-ops. And one of the things that it is definitely going to be helpful for are people who are behind on their co-op fees, especially since a lot of the hardship declarations and whatnot didn't really apply to co-op boards. So I know that co-op boards have been suing people and all through COVID. So, this is really the chance for us to get you caught up. There is no requirement in the program that your co-op board sign off on it. I know a lot of co-op owners, you feel like every time you want to do something in your apartment, the board has to agree. Yes, the board will have to provide a statement, obviously, and the board is going to get the funds from the fund, because the funds go directly to the person you owe. They don't go to you. So the board's going to know that you got the HAF funds, but you're not going to be in a situation where you can't apply because your board says, no, I won't allow you to. And if you have a board that gives you a problem like that, then it's definitely, you should reach out to me or one of my colleagues. Same thing for condo fees and for homeowners for real estate taxes. A lot of people have fallen behind during COVID on the real estate taxes. And as we all know, they can take your house just the same way that a mortgage can. So it's really important that we take care of that. And we definitely can help you, and HAF can help to pay those back taxes. And it can be a combination of both, as Dina mentioned. So if you have a mortgage that's 3 months behind and you're also behind in maintenance for 3 months, for example, as long as the two combined are under $50,000, we can apply for HAF for the two of those things. It's not $50,000 each. It's a total of $50,000, but it can be divided between, it could be a mortgage, condo fees, and taxes, right? So we definitely will make sure to use the money to take care of all of those and put you back in a position where you're back to being current. Also, I think if you are applying on your own, I think it's important that you should get a payoff statement. If you are reinstating, whether it's your mortgage or even your co-op fees, don't just go by the last statement that's mailed to you because there might be, if you're behind there might be legal fees, there may be other fees. You really need to get a statement from either the co-op board or from your bank, which says that in order to bring this loan current, it is a specific number. And do not get upset when that number is higher than what's on your monthly statement, because interest accrues daily when they send you your statement. And if you're paying something off in the middle of the month, there's going to be more money owed. So it's important to get a payoff statement. And if you have questions, or if you think that there is an issue with that, if you feel they're overcharging you or this and that, again, come to someone like us. That's what, there's the whole team at the Attorney General's office to make sure that the lenders do what it is that they are supposed to be doing. You can apply for this grant whether or not you are in foreclosure. I know some people have come to me and said, well, once I'm in court, I can't use it, right? And that's absolutely not correct. If people who are in foreclosure, whether at the very beginnings or whether you're, 6 months down the line, you definitely can use this. And with the moratorium probably ending on January 15th, it's going to be even more important that you reach out, because the courts are going to start running more again, and eventually banks are going to start foreclosure proceedings again. So very important. So whether and the other thing is, if you're not sure if this will help you, pick up the phone and call one of the hot partners. We can run through with you. There may be things that you're not even thinking about. And we know that not everyone has a simple case. Not everyone has, well, I owe $10,000, I pay $10,000 and I'm done. We've had people come to us where, there's estates, the person who owned the home passed away. We can help apply for the estate. Sometimes houses are in trust. There are complicated situations, and that's what we're here for. So I know people have a lot of questions, so I'm not going to take up too much time just speaking. But again, I just appreciate all of you coming and applaud you for coming in early, in getting this all taken care of.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rosemary and Dina. You gave us so much information. And again, a lot of references to other sources of information that we did put up in our chat. And so we just want to make sure that people know there are so many ways to get information about how to do this. So now I do have many questions that I'm going to roll into that we got in advance, but there's some people who have been typing their questions into Zoom or Facebook Live, and if you continue to do that, we will try to get to as many of the questions as possible. There are a lot of them, so I don't know. I don't want to do everybody do speed responses. So we'll just see. And I'll just ask the questions and you two can decide which one wants to take or whether you have something to add to the others. But I know that you know each other and you've worked together, so this will go very well. If an individual lost income, is that enough to qualify for 6 months of an advance payment?
So
where the income got lost from?
Yeah, I'm going to try to clarify it as best I can. So advance payment, I think the question is referring to our forward payment program. So that is right. You may be looking for money to help satisfy missed payments, but you also may be struggling to pay going forward and need assistance for that 6 months that we can offer. We call that our forward payment program. You do have to have as a predicate either a loss of income or an increase in expenses as a result of COVID, which is the Treasury requirement. To qualify for the forward payments, you must also be unemployed or have exhausted unemployment benefits or have an adult member of the household who meets that definition. Or the other exception that we were able to get approval from Treasury is if you are a mortgaged borrower who has received a modification post January 2020, and you cannot afford to make those monthly payments, you should also apply, and we may be able to address that situation through the forward payment program.
Great. So you already, one of you or both of you answered that you can't have multiple payments from different government programs. But if you're a co-op shareholder, can you apply for half if you've also been applying for an HRA one-shot deal regarding the same payment arrears?
So you can apply for more than one program if you need, for example, let's say you need $60,000 in order to bring yourself current. You can apply for $50,000 from half, and let's say $10,000 from the one shot. What you can't do is apply, if you are $20,000 in arrears, you can't apply to both for the same $20,000.
And since half is basically not repayable, as long as you continue to live there for 5 years, blah, 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 but one shots are repayable, would you recommend that you go to half first?
Honestly, every case is different. We actually have one person that we spoke to today where the one shot is actually going to be a better deal for them. So honestly, I would say you should talk to somebody, or if you're doing it yourself, really look at both programs to see, because it really is going to be on an individual case.
Thank you. Can someone apply even if their bank already started foreclosure proceedings? I think
Yes, so as Rosemary said, not only can you, but you absolutely should. And in fact, there is a priority within the application processing. So anybody who is in active litigation, and the application itself will ask that question. So anybody who's in active litigation at the time of application, those applications are going to be prioritized for a couple of reasons. One is we're going to want to make sure that that person has counsel. So basically access to an attorney. So if they're not already represented, we would make a referral to a group like Rosemary's, like NILAG. But again, there are 70 organizations that are participating. So we want to make sure folks are not going it alone, particularly if they're in litigation. And because, those are obviously the most at risk in terms of a timeline for displacement, we also want to process those applications quickly and where practical, communicate with the court that the applicant is being considered for HAP funds. And we have had multiple trainings with the Office of Court Administration. They are very aware of this. They are looking for letters from our program. They do want to know if somebody who is in litigation has already applied to HAF and is being considered.
And I will add, if you are going to court, when you apply for HAF, you get a printout right away that says that you put in your application. Bring that with you. The courts, the judges, the referees, they all know what HAF is, but they're going to want to see that you actually did apply. So if you're going to court, make sure you bring that with you.
Great. So if you're a self-employed person, can you apply for HAP because you don't have any income at this time? This was a big issue with unemployment benefits where being self-employed added to the complications, but how about for HAP?
Yeah, 100%. If you are self-employed and meet the other qualifications that we've discussed, so a COVID impact, a primary resident, either behind or struggling to go forward under the exceptions for forward payments, self-employed applicants are more than welcome.
Great. Can a shareholder with decreasing resources due to COVID who lives in a small co-op benefit from this?
Yeah, again, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
I was
go
going to
ahead.
say, yeah. So again, right, the criteria that we're looking for here is that you are struggling either to stay current on your monthly payment, your housing payment, whatever it is, mortgage or co-op fees, that you are delinquent on those housing payments, or that you're unemployed and can't pay them going forward. So 100%, we would urge you strongly to apply if you are a cooperator who is struggling.
Got it. And are Mitchell-Lama co-op shareholders eligible for this benefit?
You sure are. We've done a lot of trainings with multiple management companies, including those that we know manage the Mitchell-Lamas. They're 100% eligible. My organization, Homes and Community Renewal, oversees some of those Mitchell-Lama co-ops, and HPD, the New York City Housing Agency, oversees some of those. And we've done trainings for both government staff, so they're well aware of the program. It's just a matter of getting the word out. So 100% Mitchell-Lama is eligible.
So we talked about the income eligibility, but one question is, what do we mean by low and middle income housing versus quote unquote just a regular co-op?
So yeah, I want to be super clear about this. We are not suggesting that you have to be in a limited equity co-op or a Mitchell-Lama or an HDFC. What we are looking for is the income of the household meets this threshold of 100% of area median income. So what type of co-op you live in is not really germane or important here. What's important is that your household income does not exceed the 100% cap. And again, I covered already at the top of the conversation what those numbers are for a 1, 2, 3, and 4 family household in New York City. There is a chart on our website. It's called the income chart. And you can look up based on where you live and what your household size is, what that 100% threshold is.
I thought that question was very important because we have so many constituents, I think, throughout Manhattan where they might live in a co-op that, would sell for a decent amount of money at this moment in history, but they're cash poor, right? They may not nearly have the income that they had at the point that they bought, or the value of the apartment's gone up, but it doesn't mean they have the money at this time to continue to make their payments. So I didn't want people to think, if I have a nice co-op, it doesn't mean I couldn't be eligible, because it's really about, do you have the money to pay the cost to not lose your home?
That's exactly right, Senator. Mm-hmm.
Great. If I'm in the middle of refinancing a mortgage and I am unemployed, could I qualify for past and future assistance?
So Rosemary, do you want to take a shot at that one? I'm not sure what the refinance question really
I'm
gets to.
thinking that the person may have meant to say trying to modify a mortgage, because if you're unemployed, refinancing a normal refinance, you have to prove income and all of that. So I'm thinking, and if I'm wrong, if that person reaches out to the senator's office, they'll connect you with me. But I'm gonna go with the fact that you're trying to modify your loan, which means that you're trying to like bring down the payments, and you absolutely should apply. One of the things that we are hoping to use half funds for is if we can go to a lender and we can say, look, what can you do for me if I give you $50,000 or $30,000, right? We want to try to get principal forgiveness. We want to try to get things done. It's a tool that we could use when we're dealing with the lenders. So you absolutely, if you're in the middle of modifying your mortgage, you should apply. And don't be surprised if your lender tells you to go apply, because I know some of the lenders have been telling people when they put in their applications, go get us half funds. So I definitely, at any point, whether or not it would hurt a regular refinance, it probably would. But I can't see, if you're unemployed, I can't see a refinance. So it's probably not, but let the senator's office know if I'm completely wrong and they'll connect you with me.
All right, thank you. So I was told in order to get a mortgage assistance, a borrower would have to be at least 30 days late with their mortgage payments or common charge payments if living in a condo. I'm a senior using retirement money to pay my mortgage, but would really prefer not to have a mortgage late on my credit report. And so that's why I'm not late now. Can I still get assistance?
So that is a complicated question, and I just want to reiterate that there was a specific rule in the Treasury guidance that required a condition of half funds be that the applicant is delinquent, right? And delinquent at a minimum of 30 days. We did seek these two exceptions, which I've now mentioned twice, right? So if you're unemployed, but has somehow managed to stay current, you should apply. If you are current, but you have been given a mortgage modification in the last, say, 24 months, or basically since January 2020, and you are struggling to stay current on that mortgage, you should apply. If you are at all curious about how half could work in your circumstance, I would strongly urge you reach out either directly to the call center or to like Rosemary or a group like Rosemary's, one of the HOP organizations, and they can help assist figure out exactly what you might be eligible for under the program.
In fact, I would urge everyone who's listening tonight, even if you think you got your question answered right or wrong for you, with complicated government programs, I strongly believe you apply and see what happens. Because for every rule, there's probably 3 exceptions, and you might fit into one of those, but you wouldn't know that. So don't let any of the information tonight discourage you from attempting to apply. Because if you apply and you're eligible, you're going to be really happy. And if you didn't go ahead and apply, but you might have been eligible, you're not going to be. So I urge everyone, take the leap, give it a try. All right, I own my own home, was laid off last year due to the pandemic. I have no income now, and I'm depleting my IRA, which is not enough for me to keep going. Is there assistance available to someone like me? They don't answer the question, are they behind or not yet? Because it sounds like they're using the IRA money, which might put them in the same story as the last person. I'm not sure.
So that might be exactly the condition we sought approval from Treasury to make an exception for. So somebody who has managed to stay current but has really struggled to do so and is unemployed or has exhausted unemployment benefits should apply. And we, there we would look to see whether we could qualify you for our forward payment program, which I want to be honest, we realize is not a permanent solution. So 6 months buys you 6 months, right? But the hope, of course, is that in buying folks more time in which they can stay comfortably in their home, they can find better employment or talk with a HOP counselor about what they should do longer term. So I would strongly urge the questioner who asked that question to apply.
And I'm just going to add, just because I saw this during the mortgage crisis, so I want to make sure people don't get in trouble here. I don't want anyone to take away from this, I should stop paying my mortgage or I should stop paying my maintenance fees and apply for half. during the mortgage crisis, a lot of banks told people, well, we can't help you unless you're 90 days behind. So people said, okay, I just won't pay my mortgage. And there were some disasters. So I don't want anyone to take away from this that they should stop paying. We'll try to work it out. And, if half isn't for you, there may be other programs for you, right? That's why you reach out to us, to the senator's office. But please don't just not pay your mortgage or your fees because you want to get half.
Right.
Good tip.
And this one's different. Is there any funding available based on a decrease in rental income or income that does not cover the operation mortgage expenses if you're a small owner occupied multiple dwellings? So I guess in this situation, it's the owner of a building, not necessarily a unit, but who's not able to collect enough money to meet their costs.
Sure. So the requirement under the Treasury guidance is that it must be a single family home, which is generally defined as a 1 to 4 unit. So I'm assuming this is a scenario in which I shouldn't assume, but let me say what would be eligible, a 1 to 4. So an owner occupant who has a 4-unit property, as long as they occupy one of those units as their primary resident, if they have renters in the other units who have stopped paying, that would qualify as a COVID hardship, which is what we'd be looking for. And then we would look for the other qualifying questions. Are you income eligible, meaning is your household income less than 100% of AMI? Do you have a delinquency that we need to help satisfy? Or are you unemployed and do you need assistance paying your housing costs going forward?
Thank you. See, I told you we couldn't trick these women. They know their stuff. Okay, our co-op building has not received sublet fees from the commercial tenant since March 2020. To the present, due to the New York State COVID-related lockdown and eviction moratorium. As a result, in addition to the monthly maintenance fees, the 7 shareholders have been individually assessed to cover the budget deficit from the COVID-related lack of commercial income. This has been a substantial economic hardship for the individual owners who are seniors receiving assistance, retired or low to middle income entrepreneurs who experienced significant income loss, each of them, during the pandemic. Can you advise if and how this program might be helpful to the people living here?
So I do want to say, and it's important to understand that we cannot take applications under the HAF program per the federal rules from a building, right? So the co-op itself, the HDFC or the Mitchell-Lama or the small market rate co-op cannot apply as a building. That said, all 7 residents, it sounds like, in your building may be eligible for HAF and may benefit from the assistance, whether it's assistance with property taxes or the monthly maintenance charges. So what I would urge strongly is to make sure that the 7 residents in the building have heard all of this information, know how to get in contact with Rosemary, or just want to come to our website and start an application.
Yeah, I would highly ask you to get in touch with me or someone like me, because it would be good for us to coordinate the tenants, because we're probably going to have to get the letters about the assessment written a certain way, right? Because if they show as current, so there may be some hoops to jump through, and that's what we're here for. We're here to try to do the difficult cases to try to figure out the best way. So, and I think if there's 7 tenants and they all want to apply, it would be good for them all to apply, as Dina said, individually. But we can maybe make it easier by, having one person talk to the board, for example, to get the background we're going to need to explain why they need this money.
Right. Okay, so this question I think we did answer before, but it's important. Is it a loan or a grant? Does it need to be paid back? And I believe you explained that if you don't move or sell or refinance within 5 years, it will be a forgiven loan.
Or a forgivable grant. That is
Right.
exactly right, Senator.
Sorry. Okay. What kind of help can I get with back taxes from this program?
You can get your back taxes paid if it's less than $50,000 and you are income eligible and you live in your home as your primary resident. So anybody struggling with taxes, water, sewer, please apply.
And when you apply, you're not applying for only one thing. So if you owe back taxes, common charges, mortgage, right, they look at everything. It can't total more than $50,000 what you're going to get, but it can be a mix of all those kinds of costs, right?
That is correct. And the application itself specifically contemplates folks who may be behind on mortgage or property taxes and co-op fees. So you will be asked specifically, even if you go down what we call our mortgage pathway in the application, there will be a question that asks if you're also a cooperator and whether you're also struggling to keep up with your monthly co-op fees.
Got it. And how quickly do people learn whether or not they're eligible when they apply and complete the paperwork?
Well, Senator, on day 4, what I can tell you is this: we have tried to make both the application and the processing of those applications as expedient as possible. I do want to be frank. I think there's a differential here in terms of timing, depending on the type of homeowner or the type of struggle you're having. As Rosemary has said, and as I have said, it is important to understand that Treasury required, and we agreed, that part of the HAF program is to make sure that the banks, if you are a mortgage borrower, are offering what you're entitled to. And there are state laws about this, and there are federal rules about this, and they are actually quite generous compared to those of you who remember the last housing crisis, not so generous. This time, there's been some lessons learned, I think, at the federal level, and there is significant amount of relief offered to mortgage borrowers. So I say that only to say, if you are a borrower who is just looking for assistance with monthly co-op fees or property taxes, there's not a lot to debate, right? We just need to try to confirm you are who you say you are, that you're income eligible. We will reach out to your third-party creditor, so the tax collector or the co-op board. If we can confirm it, we would like to be able to get you to sign your promissory note and pay that very quickly. If you are a mortgage borrower, with or without the first circumstance being true, we do have to go through this process in which we reach out, and we're not asking homeowners to do this alone. They can do it with HOP, but they can also do it with the program staff, and in particular, the Attorney General's office, which is pretty helpful. So in that case, we will be reaching out to your bank. We will be ascertaining whether they have offered you everything that you're entitled to. And then we will be using HAF to layer into that offer a more affordable outcome. That will, by definition, take a little longer. We have put strong timelines around how long we want that to take and how long we'll mess around with these banks. And hopefully they won't mess around so much when they're talking to the Attorney General's office, but it could take a bit longer. By that, I mean weeks, right? We're not talking months. We're talking what I hope, especially as we get moving in our, we're still going through our first week and getting all of our processes to work like clockwork. But as we hit our groove, we expect this to move pretty quickly. And you will be informed as you go. So you will not just put an application in and it's a black hole and you never hear from anybody. We have a case management team that will be responding to you as soon as you've been validated as eligible, right? So we have all your documents, we've looked at them, we've validated that you're eligible. They will be in contact. That should take roughly, depending on when you apply, 10 to 14 days. And then as we go through the process, whichever step you're in, the case managers will be reaching out by phone, by text, by email as we go through.
Also, it's very important to look at your email, pick up your phone. There's timelines, and you're not going to be able to wait 45 days and then put in another document because the case will be closed after a certain amount of time. So please, once you apply, stay on top of it.
It's really good advice, Rosemary, and I should have said that. I was sort of telling you about our struggles, but the other struggle is having responsive applicants. So if we're missing a document or if we need something from you and we call 3-4 times and don't get a response, there will come a point where we will have to close an application as what we call stale. So Rosemary's point is very well taken. If you've applied and you've told us, I want to be contacted by this text, this phone number and text it, please look for those texts. And if you think something's wrong or you haven't heard and you're curious what it means, call our call center and we will make sure there is no miscommunication happening.
Great. If I apply and am accepted, does this impact my credit score in some way?
It does not.
Great. Okay. Can I use this money or apply for this money to replace a boiler or upgrade my windows?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I very much appreciate that question because it's not just a matter of staying in the home, but you want to stay in a warm, safe home. This program, unfortunately, is not structured to address capital needs or repairs. That said, I do want to make a pitch here. New York State Homes and Community Renewal, which is the state affordable housing agency where I work. When we're not doing the HAF program, we have a number of other programs that run all year round and run with a number of partners, nonprofit partners that we work with in New York City and statewide, who can assist with different types of interventions like that. So we do have a program called Restore, which is an emergency home repair program. We have another one called Access. So there are a number of programs through the state that may address capital needs. So if you are struggling with conditions in your home, I would urge you actually to reach out to us. That is just basically hcr.org. Or actually, no, I think we just switched to gov, or contact us through reaching out to the senator's office, and we will certainly get you connected to the right program.
Great. So in the state's program for renters, the money went to the vendor, the landlord. In this program, is the unit owner going to get the money, or is it going to go to the tax department, the bank, the co-op that you're behind on? How is the money going to get divvied up?
It's an interesting question. So our first attempt will always be to try to pay the creditor on behalf of the applicant. So if the applicant owes money to the tax collector, we will be reaching out to the tax collector to validate that, to get their wiring information and their account information. And once you're approved and have signed your promissory note, we would attempt to pay the third-party creditor, whether that's the co-op board, the mortgage company, the tax collector, whoever it is. That said, and this again comes from some of the lessons learned from past programs, if for whatever reason we cannot get cooperation from the third-party creditor, you could guess at any number of reasons why that may be the case. After a certain number of attempts to reach them and a certain number of time, we do not want to punish homeowners because we can't reach whoever they owe money to. In that case, we have asked Treasury for permission and have been granted somewhat enthusiastically the ability in that case to pay the borrower directly. So first attempt will be for a certain number of days and a certain number of attempts to reach your creditor, to settle the funds that way. I suspect actually in the case of like banks, for instance, that won't be hard, but it could be a little bit more challenging in the co-op space or in the tax space. And if at the end of the day, we simply cannot get their cooperation, we will make the funds available to the homeowner.
Got it. Okay. And I guess, I mean, again, the banks will be happy to take the money. The tax people will take your money. If you're perhaps in a dispute with your co-op and they want you to be in trouble so they don't take the money, and so then you're in a situation where they're refusing it, does that help you in a fight you might have over protecting your right to stay?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a co-op board who is refusing to accept, even though this is going to completely bring you current, that is something where an attorney like me would be dealing with the attorney for the co-op board. Or if the co-op board, we have one now where the person's $8,000 behind and they put $10,000 worth of legal fees on the bill. Those are things that, that's what we're here for. So, if a co-op board wants to get someone out for another reason that has nothing to do with payment, that's a whole separate thing, but they can't refuse to accept your payment in full because, they want to keep you in arrears.
Got it. All right. Does it make sense to apply for arrears due for maintenance on a co-op if one will be transferring to a smaller apartment in the same complex within a few months?
Yes, you should apply. This sort of gets to this exception I mentioned about the 5-year term of not moving or selling. If you are making a move to downsize for whatever reason, whether it's within the same co-op or somewhere else, this would be a circumstance where we would waive the 5-year recapture requirement in order to both get you current and then allow you to make.
Got it. I sent my co-op management 3 COVID hardship declaration forms. Despite this, they have taken me to state Supreme Court under default of the proprietary lease, and in addition to back maintenance, they are also asking for $1,000 in late fees, $100 a month, and approximately $5,500 in legal fees. Am I required to pay these fees, having submitted the proper forms, and can HAP help me pay these fees?
So the hardship declaration is not something that that co-op boards really had to follow. They were not put in. A lot of co-op boards did, they did not come after people during COVID. But there are those that did. We can always, the program will pay late fees. If there are late fees that are charged, the program's not going to say we're not paying the late fees. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dina, but
No,
it's
you're
really
right.
what needs to be done to be brought current. So they definitely should apply.
Okay. All right, we've actually gotten through the written and advanced questions, but I see many additional questions in chat. So let me just see if I can open my screen a little more to read them more effectively and start back up at the top. And yes, for those people who are thinking, where is Brian Kavanagh? The answer was he really wasn't feeling that great, so he excused himself early. And since the man has COVID, I think we give him a legitimate excuse, or a legitimate pass to go back to bed and try fluids. Okay. I'm the president of my condo board and was wondering if there are any funding resources for smaller condo residences that are semi self-managed. Our condos are in the Bronx and were constructed for low-income folks to purchase. It's townhouse style, but we have many elderly units. And I think these are a question you answered before. The building itself cannot apply for these funds, but the individual tenants in these units can apply, right? And you would evaluate each one separately. But as Rosemary pointed out, it's probably more effective if they can all coordinate and work together with the processing and the application.
100%.
The hope is that most co-op boards are going to be very cooperative, since they do, it's in their best interest as well to get these funds to them.
Right. Okay. I've had to borrow money to pay my property taxes since there was never any relief for condo owners until now. I had no option but to do this or I'd have been in default, but I still have to pay back the loan. Am I eligible for assistance?
Yeah, it's a slightly hard question to answer abstractly. So what I would urge here again is apply. And to your earlier advice, Senator, apply. We need to look at what your deficiency or who do you owe money to, and can we, under the Treasury rules, qualify? I mean, our goal, obviously, in every case, is to keep people in their home and to keep them in their home in an affordable way, and we don't want them sacrificing other needs, medicine, food, right, in order to do that. So I would strongly urge you to apply. If it is a sort of odd version of the story that needs to be looked at through some type of escalation, we do have a process for that. So it's hard to do in the abstract here, but I would say apply. And also, if need be, we will refer you to one of the groups like Rosemary's for additional assistance.
So suppose you started your application and then you realize all these documents have to be uploaded, but you don't even understand the internet. How can you get this done?
So I would go one of the other two ways. Even if you've started an application, if you feel as though you have to abandon it, I do want to say it is a pretty simple application and you may only need to upload one document. And I will say in just the first few days, literally thousands of people completed the application by themselves. So I do think it attests to the simplicity of the application. That said, it's not for everybody. And if you don't feel comfortable using the internet, or you start and you're confused by what you're reading, there are two great options. One is to call our call center and have them finish or complete your application by proxy. The other is you can go to our website and click on Get Local Help. And by putting in your zip code, if you can use the internet to do that, you can get connected to a group like NILAG's, like Rosemary's, or anybody who's operating in your borough or in your neighborhood. And then the third option, as I said earlier, is there's no prohibition for having a neighbor, a relative, a cousin, an aunt, a coworker, work with you to apply, and they will provide us with their information, and we will continue to work with them through their email account on your behalf with your permission.
Yes, go ahead, Rosemary.
Don't let the fact that you may not read or write English deter you from applying for this program. As Dina mentioned, the call center has people who speak several languages. all of our services, all of us, we have translation services. I can get someone on the phone if from Bengali, Swahili, Hindi, whatever it is you need, Haitian Creole, we can get, we can help you. We'll have them on the phone with us to go step by step. So please don't let, lack of, feeling that you're not comfortable enough reading or writing in English deter you from applying for this program.
Right. And I am going to just throw in again that the application itself is naturally in 10 languages. It's not Google Translate. We actually paid translators to convert the application portal itself into 10 languages.
And also always remember, when you're trying to do something by computer and you're maybe a little nervous about it, just find a teenager. They are genetically programmed to know how to use the computer. It's something in the DNA. It's fascinating to me how quickly we evolved. So teenagers can figure this stuff out, even if we're worried as older adults. So there's other options to help you also. All right, when filling out an application, it asked me how much in arrears I was, and if the arrears were settled, will you need more money for the future? I don't know how to respond. If I say no, am I not eligible? If I say yes, do I get additional monies?
So again, it's a little hard to do this in the abstract. What I would say is if you've started an application and you're confused about how to properly answer it, I do want to say this. Once you're into the application and what you're describing, I know where you are in the application because I'm very familiar with the application. You can't be disqualified at that point. There's only one place in the very early stage, which I described earlier, is called pre-qualification, where if you answer, I'm not a New York homeowner, it's going to tell you you're not eligible for the program. Once you're past that, your answers will not be disqualifying, right? They may require a case manager to call and follow up or to clarify how you answered. But if you are hesitant to answer because you're not sure on how to answer, I would contact the call center, tell them your application, registration. They will go into your application with you and make sure you're answering the questions correctly.
And I will give a call out to the call center. We had someone who reached out to us this morning and they emailed and he said, I don't understand. I put in my application. It all made perfect sense. And then like 20 minutes later, I got something saying you've been denied. And before we got to call him back, like 2 hours later, the center had called him and said, we're sorry, that was a mistake. We reopened your application. So I'm going to give the call center is really doing a good job. They're really working hard on this. So feel free to, that's what they're there for. Feel free to call them and use them.
So a little bit ago, I asked you a question about someone who borrowed money and so could they apply to pay that money? And I guess the assumption was that was from a bank. So this is a variation. If I borrowed money with interest from an individual, can I use that as a basis for needing?
Yeah, again, these are really hard to get into in the abstract. And we did think a lot about like circumstances like this. I would encourage that person to apply. I cannot say certainly here right now that yes, you're eligible or no, you're not eligible. Please do keep in mind, there are limitations to what we're allowed to do under the federal rules of this program. But that said, again, our goal is to help people where we can help them. So if you have a sort of a funky situation like what the senator is describing, I would say apply. We will definitely connect you if needed to one of the groups like Rosemary's, or we will be able to work through an escalation process that we have internally to address some of these sort of not run-of-the-mill cases.
Okay, this was a question from a landlord who can't pay their taxes due to tenants not being able to pay their rent. No, this program cannot be applied for by landlords.
Well, if you live in the building as your primary residence and you have tenants, then you can apply for that. If you do not live in the building and you are truly a landlord who does not live there, you cannot.
Okay. Somebody asked about what are one-shots. So emergency one-shots are applied for through HRA in New York City, the Human Resources Administration, and depending on your circumstances, and they're fairly complex, you might be eligible for emergency one-shot grants from HRA. And as was discussed before, you might be eligible for both under some circumstances. And you can call my office if you want to learn more about emergency one-shot program. Question, does my individual retirement account disqualify me from being approved by HAF?
We are not doing an asset test as part of the application process. So your earlier example, Senator, the value of your home, the equity built in your home over the last year, other resources that you may have available, we are not doing an asset test. So no, having an IRA or a pension does not disqualify you as long as your combined monthly income does not exceed 100% of the area median.
And that's actually a great question, because I know for a lot of you who have applied for mortgage modifications, you've gotten to turn down because there's equity in your home. And that's been a fight for a lot of years. But this program, it doesn't matter. If you don't have, you could not have a mortgage, and if you're just behind on your taxes, then you're still eligible.
Got it. This is a federal program, so every state has a variation on this. Is that correct?
So within the guidelines that Treasury set, that's right. There is probably some differences between states because it wasn't spelled out to the letter. We have been in regular communication with virtually all 50 states and actually a number of tribal nations who also got independent funding and are running their own HAF programs, including here in New York. So there are some consistencies, but yes, I am not aware of any state that declined to participate.
Great, thank you. If you're in forbearance, are you considered delinquent?
Yes.
Okay.
And the application tries very hard to make that very clear.
Got it. Okay. I think I did that one already. Will promissory notes be filed on NYC ACRIS?
We don't file, I don't think we file anything on ACRIS. So the way we structure the promissory note is not a mortgage. So we're not recording a lien on the home. We're not recording a mortgage lien on the home. We will record it as like a UCC filing, which is sometimes known as like a mechanics lien. That would likely appear on ACRIS. It should not have any impact on anything, except that if you go to sell the home within the 5 years, that UCC would come up in the title report. And would be the way the program would know if somebody is attempting to sell or refinance within that 5-year time frame.
And if I can just add, I mean, if things change and you have to sell in 2 or 3 years, let's say, and you're worried that the $50,000 is going to make it so that you can't sell, we can do what's called a short sale where we can negotiate with the bank. We can ask for forgiveness on this. So don't let the fear of, 2 years from now, what if I can't keep my home? Don't let the fear of that lien, prevent you from applying.
Yeah, and we have written into the promissory note itself an exception, like a hardship exception, where we can waive the recapture for circumstances that are compelling, like what Rosemary's describing.
So if you're approved and get the money, but then within 5 years the person dies, what happens?
Nothing. We'll forgive the lien.
Okay. And the last question that just came in, and it's perfect timing for us. Can an owner of a 6-family apartment house who's living in 3 of the units get help for the other units?
There's always one. You finally did it, Senator. You stumped us. So I would say apply. There is a technical definition of a single family home, and this is a little bit funky for that. So I think we would, to be frank, my instinct is we would probably, if you've converted 3 apartments into your primary residence so that you are living in it as one home and you have renters in the other 2, we would look probably to Treasury to say this is okay if the person qualifies by all their measures, but it is something we would have to sort of make sure we're not outside of the parameters of the federal rules.
Well, you two are amazing. We actually got through all these questions, which shocked me. So I want to thank Dina and Rosemary for being incredible information resources for us. And everybody who's been listening tonight, even if you still have questions, you now know there are lots of places to go for answers, and you should give this a try if you're in financial trouble, being able to stay in your condo or co-op or home. We don't have that many houses here in Manhattan, but some geographic areas. Again, thank you all for attending. Next Thursday, January 13th from 7 to 8:15, I'll be hosting the first session of my 2022 Senior Roundtable Series, Aging Well in the Community. That, of course, includes being able to stay in your own home. And this roundtable will focus on a model for good primary care as we age. Can't emphasize enough the importance of primary health care. A few COVID updates and reminders. We all know this. Continue to wear your mask indoor settings. Get vaccinated, including booster shots, because the Omicron variant is so easily transferred and highly contagious. It's really critical to wear a mask that is provides additional protection regardless of vaccine status. The government is urging us to use higher grade KN95, 94, or N95 masks, pretty much not the cloth masks anymore. Otherwise, double mask by putting on a cloth mask over a surgical mask and not the ear loops to tighten the mask so it fits snugly. We'll post a link to walk you through the special ideas to help masks work even more effectively. Excuse me. The CDC has updated its guidance for booster shots. If you received the Pfizer vaccine for your primary series, you're now recommended to get the booster shot, Pfizer or Moderna, 5 months after your second dose. If you received the Moderna vaccine for your primary, you should still wait 6 months before you're getting your booster. Testing also remains critical regardless of your vaccination status. Get tested for COVID if you develop symptoms or if you're exposed to someone with coronavirus before participating in any gatherings with people. I know we're all a little tired of living in our rooms and seeing the world and talking to the world through Zoom, but we're getting close to the end of this one. I really, really believe it. So we just have to keep doing what we've been doing proudly here in New York City. And when you need help with anything, you know how to find me at my office. And I want to thank all my Manhattan colleagues who co-sponsored this event, because they're there for their constituents as well every day. And we want to make sure people are getting both the best assistance they can to stay in their homes and the best health care they can to make sure that they stay healthy. So again, thank you all, and thank you to my amazing staff who make sure these things go off the way they do. So everyone have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.